Webflow last summer, 8%. So not one, but 8%
Mm.
of our self-serve signups came from LLM sourced traffic, referred traffic, where it was a direct referral, not counting the halo effect on direct nav and branded search, ignoring
Mm.
that. That traffic converted 6 times better,
Yeah.
not 6%, 6x better than unbranded organic search, which I think is a fair comparison. And what I've heard from CMOs, 8 is a little high. I've heard like 2, 3, 4, 5 growing rapidly. The 6x, that was not an outlier at all. SEMrush and Ahrefs
Yeah.
found 4x to 23x. And so it is like higher converting
Yeah.
traffic because they've had the conversation and are further down the funnel. I have heard some people say, oh, well, therefore your site doesn't need to have upper funnel content anymore on it. And I could agree more because the LLMs are looking to your site also as a data source, and you need to be
Yeah.
able to tell that story.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Kevin Kerner with Tech Marketing Rewired. This session was a really fun one for me. I talked to Guy Yalif, who is the chief evangelist of Webflow. Yeah, Webflow. And as Guy found out over the last few weeks of talking to him, I'm a big Webflow fan. And I was really excited to talk to him about all the changes that are happening in CMS and marketing sites and micro apps and all the things that are at the top of every person's agenda right now in marketing. So Guy and I talked a lot about the dynamic between vibe coding and what's happening with micro apps and everyone having access to all these powerful tools and being an enterprise that needs to stay secure. We also talked about CMOs are actually in the tools, playing around with some of these technologies now more than ever, and how they're organizing their team to take advantage of this new capability while also staying secure and building for the enterprise. So it was a really great conversation. Guy is a great human being and really easy to talk to. We could have gone on forever, but this was a really insightful conversation from someone who talks to CMOs all the time about this stuff. Before we get started, though, I wanted to mention this podcast is sponsored by my company, Mighty and True. Mighty and True is a growth marketing agency that works with tech brands to help them mature their growth strategies and also help them move along their AI and automation initiatives. So we do a 45-minute blueprint session with companies as a way to get started. And that blueprint will allow you to identify those gaps in your strategy where we might be able to improve things, but also you can run AI and automation experiments inside those growth marketing efforts to help mature your use of these new technologies. So if you're interested and want to reach out for a blueprint or reach out about the podcast, you can reach us at www.mightyandtrue.com. Okay, that's about it. Can't wait for you guys to hear from Guy. This is Tech Marketing Rewired. Let's get to it. Guy, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Great to connect again.
I am so excited to have you on. I'm a giant Webflow fanboy here, and I reached out to you to talk to you about what was going on. And it's like the dream. You must have the dream job right now at Webflow. I was just looking through the LinkedIn Webflow profile, and I saw the Vidoso acquisition, which is asset generation. I saw the OneTrust thing, which is consent and user preferences. You've got component canvas launch now. You've got native in Cursor. So 10 skills and MCP server. It's just,
and
how do you even,
yeah.
What do you even do when you wake up in the morning? Are you like, what do I get to play with next? What could happen next? It's really great.
It is awesome to partner with an EPD team that is constantly shipping stuff and enabling people to just run. And we were the first CMS to support MCP. And now, like, the things you can go do directly out of your LLM of choice, it's really a lot of fun. I'm grateful for the partnership and the fanboydom. I happen to fanboy as well. I'm like, hey, this is really empowering. And I know we'll talk about it more, but the concept of doing that empowerment in a safe, brand safe, security, privacy safe way, I like that.
Yeah, let's jump into that, because that's where my head is at right now. Like, we're just doing a little bit of discussion on the pre-call, and it's kind of interesting to talk about the vibe code thing and how creating apps from scratch and overnight and all that kind of stuff. But there is this dual reality going on right now of people that can create pretty much anything. But then there's the other side of it where you have enterprises that are, need to be secure and keys and credentials and access. And there's a real threat out there from bad actors to get into things they shouldn't be in. So I wonder from your perspective on the Webflow side, like how are you guys wrestling with that I don't know if it's conflict, but those two dimensions?
Embracing it fully, saying that with the mental model of, yes, we absolutely need to enable each of us to create, call it vibe coding, call it agentic development, but mere mortals who don't know how to code natively, or those who do, but to be able to do these things at scale in plain English, guiding the prompt to prototype, it's mind-blowing. It's truly magical. It is excellent. Yeah. But prompt to production is a whole other thing entirely. I hope it doesn't happen, but I would bet a pretty penny that some well-intentioned, I'll pick on marketers because I've been a marketer for a while, somewhere is going to get fired one day because they vibe code a lead gen magnet and they do a great job of it and it gathers PII and then they get hacked the next day. I think having a safe playground where you've got security, you've got governance, you've got privacy. And then if you're enterprise, you're probably also going to want like roles and permissions and workflows and reviews. But you can't skip the security, governance, privacy at a business of any size. And so I like the idea of being able to play safely, where you're like really empowering people to go bring these visions to life, but you're doing it in a secure privacy, governance, safety way. At Webflow, we then think, in my humble opinion, in a differentiated way of also making it brand safe, where the playground you're playing in, you're going to stick in your design system. You can have the great ideas without it breaking the brand. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It is. And the thing I'm playing around with now that I see a lot of is the micro app, the adjacent apps that are outside of the Webflow environment, and there's so much creativity that you can make out there. It's how do you manage these self-created tools that might plug into an ecosystem, like that self-hosting side, running something up on Vercel or something, having some headless container. You can do that really easily, but I wonder how you guys think of the surrounding ecosystem that might be vibe-coded apps that now need to plug into your enterprise-grade CMS.
A few different ways, all of which follow those same principles we were talking about before, where you get to build the way you would like. By the way, you can vibe code an app on Webflow. You can host an app on Webflow using Webflow Cloud and then Webflow Code Components. And Webflow, you can literally just agentically go create things, and there's plenty more coming there. But let's say whether you built it on Webflow and hosted on Webflow Cloud or any other place, you then can plug it in and have it live in this brand safe place, these shared guardrails. I think when you're doing it I think the ebb and flow of the microservices more broadly, right? You and I have seen the suites are the answer. The point solutions are the answer. The suites are the right. And that ebbs and flows over the course of better parts of a decade. Okay. Now I think we will find, I personally believe, and Webflow too, that there is incremental value and goodness in having shared context, where that context is your brand voice, your style guide. It's also all those other things we were talking about, those guardrails that make it safe to do what you're doing, so that you can go really fast and be really creative and be safe at the same time.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. From a leadership perspective, to back up a little, you work with a lot of CMOs and CIOs, and I think you were at the conference recently where you had a lot of CMOs, the SEO conference. What's on their minds around this stuff? Like, I wonder how aggressive do you see marketers wanting to be, or CMOs specifically, like leadership? And then what do you see on the other side when you got the web dev SecOps, all those people. Like, what are the two different dynamics that you hear going on between those two in an enterprise?
Very happy to share it. To put it in context, I was AI coding aerospace engineer, then became a CMO because that's a straight line, right? Aerospace engineer to CMO. Ha ha ha. I spent um, 15 years in ad tech, and then 10 years ago was co-founder CEO of an AI website personalization company that Webflow bought a couple of years ago. And the reason I have those conversations that you were describing is because, okay, I was a CMO as a CEO. Webflow acquired us. Webflow has both of those. So we made up this job called Chief Evangelist, where I'm out in market talking to CMOs all the time. And so I have hundreds of conversations each quarter. And then the direct answer to your question, having given that context, is yeah, they are working to adopt as quickly as they can, but that varies wildly. There are places, I feel like, cut me off if this is not where you want to go, but like there's a bit of an AI fluency, AI maturity model we can have in mind. And the answer to where the CMOs are depends on that for their org. I feel like, the initial part is like privacy, security, legal, saying it's okay to use these tools. There are a lot of enterprises like Fortune 500, where it's still not okay to use a bunch of these things, where folks are still saying, "Hey, it's going to train on my data," and haven't gotten to that point. Okay, then you enable people to play. Level 2, level 3, you enable them to play, but pointed at business goals. And hopefully, somewhere between level 2 and level 3, people have their own like aha moments where they then, to what you and I were talking about in the pre-call, are up for going through the easy and the frustrating parts that enable them to have agents running for many hours at a time. I would humbly submit when you go from there, then you automate parts of your job. Many CMOs are hoping that would happen, not because I haven't heard CMOs say, "Oh, hey, I'm looking to cut a bunch of people." I've heard them say, like, let's take
same
this.
Here.
Yeah.
Same here. Yep.
That let's take the work that's less enjoyable, less fulfilling. Let's have people use their superpowers, do the things that they became marketers to do. And so level 4 lets you do that. Level 5 in this made up rubric is automate things to superhuman levels that you couldn't do before, like gather all the things before you meet with somebody for a meeting in a way that like you never would have found the time to do before. And level 6 is the stuff you read headlines about, but I feel like there's a lot of distance between here and there. And that's truly re-architecting your work, your org, how you think about things. And so I feel like there's a lot of articles up here. I feel like there's a lot of dependencies down here. And I feel like many of the CMOs are in that middle of, okay, let me go find the champions. Let me go try this very directly. I've seen more hands-on direct work than in anything I've ever seen before in my career. I see you nodding too, because I feel like it's experiential, right? To like actually have, you're like, wait, what are the degrees of freedom I have? What are the use cases? What can this thing do? And it feels a little bit, it's not quite like at all like parenting where like, oh, you can't really describe what it's like to be a parent until you are one. You know this better than I do. But you need to experience this.
We both know it. we both
do. But 2 and 8 are two very different things to, scopes. And then on the go ahead.
No, go ahead. You keep going.
And to answer the second part of your question, I feel like on the whole, the technical folks are thinking, hey, great, like we can go build this whole thing. We'll give you total control because we can go run so quickly. This is one story arc. It's obviously not the only one. Every company and person are different. But I feel like it sounds super appealing up front. And then you vibe code something, but then you get to day 2 where you're like, wait, now I need to manage this thing. Wait, now I want to run a test. Wait, now I want to tweak this individual word. And you create a dependency on engineering that puts us as marketers back where we were, which is like unempowered, not because engineering doesn't care. They truly care. That's why they built this in the first place. They wanted to make this better, but because they're busy building the core product. And we're like, hey, I want to run a test. And they're like, you don't even know if this is going to work. I'm going to go build a core product. And so that contradiction, I think, folks are increasingly going to run into? Sorry, that was a super long answer. How does that
No,
land
it's
for you?
really very, very good. And I think it gets me thinking that you have this, at the CMO level, you have this pressure to be in the things, doing the things like never before. It's like, and I've talked just this past week, I've talked to two CMOs. One was a current CMO and the other was a CMO that had left her job and was looking for something else. And they're both have this intense desire and pressure, really pressure to get in the tools and start doing the things. Like you never heard a CMO want to get into like Eloqua or Marketo or something and do the things, or an ESP platform or anything else. But for some reason, and I guess it's because we're all empowered to get in these things, there is a big push to actually do the work, to create the things, to experiment. And I do think it makes them better leaders if they are able to understand the requests. The wildest requests I get from people are the ones where they don't have a grip on what the stuff can do and the dangers of it. And they just want to, do all the things all at once, but it's not backed up with any experience or understanding of what the tools are. So I completely agree with you.
To your point about the two CMOs, I think some of the most AI knowledgeable, AI advanced people I talk to now are the ones that have been out of a full-time job for an extended period of time, because they are finding the hours that everybody else is like, boy, I wish I found the hours. They are finding the hours and are really doing breakthrough things. And to your point about, as a CMO, chances are pretty good you were not honkering to get into you were picking on send an email. Great. You pick on any one of the systems, right? Like that's totally. I feel like, I think it's stating the obvious, and something you would agree with too, but like the pace of change is so fast, like measured in months and weeks, and that it's truly breaking constraints that we have been optimizing around for a long time. And so the game we're playing changes, right? That the constraints we're optimizing against change. And then I feel like the other part of it is, culture is one of the very few things that flows from the top. And so I feel like there's a healthy dose of inspiring people on their teams who are anywhere between like, oh, I'm all in, this is the future, to I'm scared I'm going to lose my job, to I don't understand the words that just came out of your mouth. Like, and I feel stupid asking about it. And all the above.
Yeah, for sure.
That lands for you?
Yes, absolutely. On the flip side, there's the CIO point of view, or maybe the web dev team or CISO. If I'm a CMO, what do I need to know about that side of the organization? Like, how's the CISO feel about this? How's the web dev team feel about all this vibe coding? And how can I manage them better as a CMO?
I feel like at a pattern matching stereotype level, so by definition does not apply to everybody. I think part of the reason engineers are finding so much value in the LLMs is because you can get more out of them with thinking that is taught when you're trained to be an engineer, taking big problems, breaking them down into pieces, thinking about systems and how they talk to each other. And I feel like, again, at a stereotype level, most go-to-market people, marketers, sellers, like that wasn't part of art history degree. That wasn't part of some of the things they were taught. But you get more out of these systems when you are thinking about them that way, or like breaking down jobs to be done. Product managers, again, stereotype, are very, very good at doing that. Most you go to a stereotypical AE and say, hey, what are the jobs to be done you're doing every day? And like the it's just not the way they've been trained. And so I feel like there is part of the AI fluency that is raising their fluency and thinking that way, and also lowering the bar so they don't have to think that way. I feel like some of the best AI I'm seeing is like it's in context in a workflow they're familiar with before you change everything. It's context aware, so it knows their brand, if that's relevant, or knows their tech or so on. And then it's asking people questions they're familiar with answering. And so for the engineer and the marketer, those are going to be two really different things. Does that land for you?
Yes, yeah. And one of the great hacks I can think of is if you are a marketer and you need to talk to the engineering team or you need to make a change, ask the LLM to give you some context of how they might feel, like the systems thinking that an engineer might be thinking. If you're a marketer, you can very easily ask the LLM to help you have that conversation in a way that helps enable, so you sort of meet in the middle. So there's some context for the developer or the engineer or the web team. Because the LLMs are a great thought partner. We don't all have to be experts anymore. We've got a great thought partner that can help us be semi-experts or at least relate to each other easier. I want to pivot a little to to another big topic here that we've talked in the pre-meeting about, which I think is you were at this conference. I can't remember the name of the conference, but it was all around AEO, GEO, and AEO or AEO best practices. And you heard a lot of people, a lot of senior marketers talking about what they're doing in terms of AI search and readiness for AI search. I wonder if you could just give some of your thoughts on the things you heard. What was the name of the conference that you spoke at?
There were a bunch of them. I had the privilege of co-hosting AEO Conf with the
AEO, that's
CEOs
right.
of
Yeah.
Graphite and AirOps, and it
Yeah.
was a great day. First, the teams did a great job physically setting it up, but additionally, it's such a rapidly evolving space. We're all learning together, and it was awesome to hear both of them, to speak with Twilio, OpenAI, Reddit, SQL, and a bunch of others. And the thing that was really interesting was, it was solely CMOs and marketing leaders. It was the rare conference where we actually said no outside of that. We were very fortunate. The interest is so high. There were 1,200 people on the wait list for this because the interest in the topic is so high. Okay. The CMOs, to connect to your earlier question, there was very real interest in actionable playbook level discussion for the CMO, which is different than the practitioner playbook, right? Like, here are the ways to manage your team. Here are the ways to guide your team. Here are the ways to evaluate your team. Here are some of the early plays to go run. Not like, here's the way to execute this thing, right? That their team would want to know. There was real actionability desire, if I could make up that word, from the CMOs around, what do I do next? And we talked about a bunch of them. We invited CMOs to think about AEO as answer engine optimization, which is really the same goals we had with the SEO, where you want to show up in an LLM or show up in search. You want to attract people to your site and drive more revenue and pipeline that way. Okay. Sometimes people call it GEO, AIEO. We're calling it AEO, and happy to talk about that if that's interesting. But we invited people to think about AEO as close to what good SEO always should have been. Not identical, but close. And that your SEO and AEO teams, your SEO and AEO agencies, they're one and the same. It's the right background for AEO to do SEO. Okay. And then we invited people to think about it in 4 different categories. Is this interesting to keep going on, or should we change topics?
No, let's do it.
The 4 categories were content, technical authority, and measurement. And we invited people to think about it that way because in content, you're going from this world where, to get organic traffic, you were thinking about, okay, what topics do I want to be known for and show up for? And those are represented as clusters of keywords. Okay, well, now those same topics are represented as clusters of questions that people are asking, because in Google search time, we all learned to speak search. Our average query was 4 words long. In LLM time, we're speaking much closer to plain English. Average query is 23 words long and growing, and you have a full conversation. So you get these richer, deeper questions. Okay. And then we invited people to think, hey, the questions your prospects are asking, but if you're looking for them, like, go run an LLM over your sales call recordings, over your sales and support emails. Go ask the LLM, go look at Google's. People also ask, like, all of those are good fodder, and then answer them throughout the funnel. What's a good CMS? How does Webflow compare to X, Y, and Z? How long will it take to implement this, right? Those are throughout the funnel, and then answer them in depth, because, again, to pick on Webflow with a totally made up example, the concept in SEO time of answering how do I personalize on my CMS for mobile versus desktop in New York for finance? I made that up. It's a silly example, but like that level of specificity that far down the tail in SEO land, useless. In AEO land, maybe if you've got a bunch of the fundamentals right. And then you want to make that content personalized. In technical, you go from on-page SEO and all the thoughtful things we did around keywords to the single biggest thing you can do, serve it up on a silver platter. And by those made up words, I mean, make it easy for the LLMs to understand the structure and meaning of your content. So it's easy for them to ingest and decide in their trade-off between how expensive is it to crawl you and how good is your content. Make it cheap for them to consume you. So you can do that in the content itself with bulleted lists, with descriptive headlines, with table of contents, with FAQs. And you could do it technically in the metadata, which everyone knows is stuff the machine sees, but the people don't, with things like SEO metadata, accessibility metadata, schema metadata, which is incredibly valuable to add. And I'll briefly go through the other two. In authority, you go from backlinks, which still matter, to, because LLMs are looking for consensus, plain text dimensions on other sites matter a lot. So brand is back because it creates consistency. PR is back because you show up in a bunch of different places. And lastly, in measurement, you go from keyword ranking to, okay, I care, did I rank for these keywords? Now I care, did I show up for these questions I care to be in the answer to? And then you mature to what was my share of voice? And then 3 ideas that just don't exist in search, which, because Google was using our words, was the sentiment positive? Was the message pull through good? And was it accurate? Or did it confidently get it wrong about me? Again, sorry, long-winded answer. How does all that land for you? What does that trigger for you?
Really good stuff. Yeah, but it's really interesting to hear you say all those things because they are kind of fundamental SEO best practices. Really, they're the same thing. They're just turned a little different. The idea that the queries or the search terms, long tail search, let's call it, the search terms, they're real long now. It's such an interesting concept. And the thing that is it comes to mind is that now you can use AI to actually go get some of those longer tail ideas for you. You don't have to sit and come up with them. The AI can actually enable you thinking of some of these things. It's really fascinating. I interviewed the SEO lead for Procore a couple podcasts ago. He made the point that only 1% of traffic for most companies is coming through LLMs, but you had a significant portion of your total funnel coming through traditional search. So you don't want to over-index on it, I guess, but you really want to get ready for it, I would guess. Under a lot of the CMOs, there's all this pressure to be there in AEO, which I totally understand. But most of the funnel is coming from your traditional stuff right now.
I agree with that SEO lead at Procore a lot. I've seen slightly different numbers, but the principle's the same, that it's small, growing exponentially, and really high converting. At Webflow last summer, 8%, so not 1, but 8% of our self-serve signups came from LLM-sourced traffic, referred traffic, where it was a direct referral, not counting the halo effect on direct nav and branded search, ignoring that. That traffic converted 6 times better, not 6%, 6x better than unbranded organic search, which I think is a fair comparison. And what I've heard from CMOs, 8 is a little high. I've heard 2, 3, 4, 5 growing rapidly. The 6x, that was not an outlier at all. SEMrush and Ahrefs found 4x to 23x. And so it is higher converting traffic because they've had the conversation and are further down the funnel. I have heard some people say, oh, well, therefore your site doesn't need to have upper funnel content anymore on it. And I could not disagree more because the LLMs are looking to your site also as a data source. And you need to be able to tell that story. And not everyone is further down the funnel. But to your point, I would look at total LLM source traffic and invest in AEO, but don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, if that's the right metaphor for this, because 90+% is still coming from search and other places.
Is there anything that Webflow is able to do, since you control that whole the ecosystem inside your platform. Is there anything that you're doing technically that will help companies adopt or become more ready for the AEO? Like, are there any technical parts of what you can do or could do in the future to help rank or get ready for AEO?
We happen to have invested a ton in this and will continue to do so. If we focus just on the technical category and not the other three, we make it really easy to serve things up on a silver platter. So we're the only place I know of now that will look at your content, pick which ones of the hundreds of schemas, like product page, company page, event page, bio page, pick the right one, apply your content into it for that page or for a whole CMS collection. So auto-generate schema, auto-generate sitemap XML, auto-generate metadata based on images, auto-generate SEO metadata based on the page, create code that is clean and semantic. And the LLMs like semantic code so that you're telling them, this is an H1. Then here are logically structured H2, H3s. Other places might do it as like just a bunch of divs. That doesn't give the LLMs as much signal. Mobile responsive by default, 300 plus global data centers, super fast, super secure,
Speed,
updated security automatically, all the things that help an LLM consume the content and think, hey, this is trustworthy.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. We're a Webflow customer, so I see it firsthand. It's really good stuff. If from the conference, from the CMO discussions you had around all this stuff, how are they thinking about organizing around this need for AEO? Did you hear anything about just the team? Who does this? What type of skill sets? CMOs are probably scratching their head, or they probably understand, but they're like, God, there's a lot of stuff to do. Like, what do I need to enable on my team to make this stuff work?
The majority I have heard say, which in my humble opinion is the right answer, it's my SEO team or my SEO agency. I don't need to make a change. I might need to buy them a new tool. The listening tools for did I show up in LLM answers, SEMrush and Ahrefs, which won the keyword ranking war, are also doing this, and there are a whole bunch of others. Okay. But generally it's the same folks. I think many are thoughtfully evaluating the team a little bit differently because like organic traffic for many is flat or even down some. But I think we're in a temporary multi-year time where, like the early days of search, things are changing so rapidly. The reason I think we asked everybody to have organic traffic going up and to the right for so long is because things were pretty steady state. Well, now we've got this two sets of traffic, right? This like some of the search traffic is going down a little bit, but then you've got this much higher converting LLM traffic. And so I think some of the more thoughtful CMOs are evaluating it separately and not beating up their teams because traffic's going down some. And they're looking at a little later funnel, like what were total leads or conversions like. I have heard a couple of stories that I think are really scary. The caricature of it was totally unvalidated, so I do not know if it was real, but somebody I trust said to me, hey, I heard a Fortune 500 CMO said, you know what, I want to go do AEO now. I'm all in. I fired his or her entire SEO team.
Yeah.
I think most of what we do is shades of gray. This is black and white. Like that is the wrong thing to do. That is not what somebody should be doing in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. Shades of gray is the perfect way to put it because it's tweaking what you already know about SEO. You can have a really good SEO person on your team. It's not a very big leap for them to understand this stuff, both technically and process and educating the rest of your team. But if you take them out and try to do something that's really crazy with your site, that's not a good idea at this point. It's a small bit of the traffic. It's very important. It's going to change a bunch. I'm really interested
also, if you were to go ahead, sorry.
I'm really interested in agent to agent, the evolution to now agent to agent web, where a lot of the stuff that gets served up on the web over time will be agents talking to each other and then serving up. It's kind of like, I don't know if I mentioned to you before on the pre-call, it's kind of the resend email story where if you ask a agent, if you go into the Claude or ChatGPT or something and you ask about email platforms and you're at least deving an email, it will recommend a tool called Resend. And Resend has structured their web such that the agents find them very easily. In fact, there's a really interesting story from the guy who launched it in that he launched Resend, he started seeing he was getting a lot of traffic from the LLMs. And so he leaned into it all the way. And he basically built a business. So he's AI, he sells to the AI agent. There's another tool that we use for social media called Late, which is the same thing. It's like Late is a social media platform for developers, and it just looks like a developer platform. It's got the developer docs and all the things that an agent would just love. So I'm interested in that transition to agent communications. What do you think about that? Are you seeing the same thing?
I think it is super interesting what you shared. I'll just do the one half step back on the SEO, AEO teams. If you were to define the ideal AEO background to hire for, it'd be an SEO background.
Yeah, right.
Just to say it out loud. To go to the point you were making now, we very much see websites as serving two audiences. I'll say now, but they have been for a long time. Right? Websites need to create these visually stunning, emotionally evocative, engaging storytelling for humans. Okay. They need to then efficiently communicate similar info to machines. We did that with SEO metadata. We did that with Facebook Open Graph for those of us that are B2C. Schema is now the next one, but like that is part of the job. I'm with you that like the agent to agent, the A to A, that will be a very big thing. I'm individually, not Webflow, super fired up by Google's creation of WebMCP. I think it'll enable a lot of additional sites, even ones that don't have a lot of functionality on them, to be functionally accessible to agents. Again, opinion of one. Very curious where that goes. To the Resend and Late examples, oh my gosh, that is so true. You can have an impact tomorrow on AEO by making changes. And I don't mean metaphorically tomorrow, because the LLMs are running searches all the time. I'll give one example. And by we, I mean Vivian Huang, who runs our SEO AEO team, took our top 6 product pages, added FAQs to the bottom of them, mirroring the data that was up above, the now structures FAQ, added schema to those FAQs. In 2 weeks, 57% of the incremental citations Webflow.com got were for those 6 pages. That's a super interesting stat when you realize Webflow.com has 250,000 pages on it. Those 6 got 57%, and they got 24% more traffic in 2 weeks. How hard did we work in search time to get the backlinks, to drive the authority, to drive that much traffic? And so you really can have a big impact. And I think there is maybe it's arbitrage. It's certainly early mover because it's a bit of a new medium. And those that haven't yet will get there later, but they'll do more work. Those that do earlier, again, to your point, moderated. It's not 100-0 ignore search, but they will find advantage and bargains in terms of how much energy did they put in and how much traffic and revenue did they get out. Does that land for you?
Yeah. Completely. Our audience is mostly technology, CMOs. We're business that focuses on technology marketing. And for the technology side of things, it's really interesting that when you get the agents talking to each other, and you may be in a plan session in Claude Code or Codex, and the plan session in the literally coding agent says you should probably use this tool, and you can just see that the agents they're probably not being hacked, or they're not. It's not they're not being angled into a tool. It's just that some of these companies have done a better job than others at recommending that particular technology. And they're usually all pretty solid technologies because they are also looking at other tools as well. But the AI is like, yep. And so when you're selling to a developer community, I think it's even more important to have your site set up to be targeted towards the agents, because your devs are going to see the stuff. And then the devs will say, you know what, we do need Resend, or we need these other, we shouldn't be using this ESP. We should be using this one because I can dev easier with it. And that's a trend that's going to continue, I believe.
Resident to
Okay,
come.
so let's this has been fascinating. I just wanted to ask you one more question, and I'm going to ask you our AI roulette question after that. But I wonder where you see all this headed, both for Webflow and for marketers over the next 6 to 12 months. What are you most excited about that you see in the near future? I don't know, what is the near future anymore? Is it like next week or is it like in 6 months from now? But what most excites you about where things are headed?
I am over the moon about the possibility of basically creating an agentic marketing platform which uses the enterprise security, safety, brand safety, and then enables agents to operate at scale, whether it's through MCP, directly on a platform, through your tool of choice in that environment. So you can get the magic that we are all seeing the promise of without it breaking everything that you've built or getting you fired because somebody hacked your site. I think that's the path to the actual promise we're hearing. So you can go to production for real and drive the bigger business impacts. There's so much more to do there. And I'm really excited about the things we're going to be able to share in the rest of this year about it.
I love to hear you say that, because that's what I'm most excited about is being in a chat or a terminal and having an idea and having it expose itself into a secure platform, but actually have the containers and everything actually work out the way it needs, the way you see it. And on the brand thing, it's really interesting to be designing an AI right now because a lot of the AI designs they're sort of leaning into one trend or the other. The agents are sort of picking up on trend. But if you have your brand locked in something like a Webflow, and as things mature more, I can see a scenario where it's like chat to container and it's locked in pretty much 100% with schema, with the right content, AEO optimized, SEO optimized. I'm super excited. That's what you mentioned because that's what I want. That's what I'm waiting for. It's good stuff.
Try playing with our MCP today.
I have. I've got a session going right now with Claude Code design to Figma, edit back in Figma, go back into Claude Code, and then MCP into Webflow. And I'm trying to figure out the Figma, for maybe even eliminating Figma and going directly into Webflow. So that is an experiment. My wife is not happy with me because I'm spending nights and weekends in the terminal window in Webflow. So I can only, hopefully she doesn't listen to this podcast. So I'm probably safe.
I will vulnerably similarly share. I find myself falling down the rabbit hole for hours. I mean, I could look up 3 hours later, having like really explored the folds of a problem built as if I had an engineering team right next to me, and look up and be like, ooh, I needed to get this done for that person that I built this. It's so fascinating. And to what you said much earlier, I think CMOs need to simultaneously be inspiring by doing these like, holy cow, our CMO did that, and not do the whole team's job for that. Don't fall down that trap, because you really need the whole team doing this to get the force multiplication, just like with all work. But it's like, it's to your point about when we were picking on EMSs before, CMOs were far less tempted before, far less realistic to do it before.
So true. And I'm guilty of that myself. But there is a certain amount of it you need to do to show the team. It's like, oh my gosh, we can do that. I've noticed that myself in developing a lot of little micro apps that our team is now like, okay, I think I can see what this thing can do. Now they're asking to do the same thing. And keeping all that contained and secure and those type of things is the challenge. And luckily we have Webflow as a partner, so it helps with that a ton. Okay, so I'm going to do one last thing with you here. This is a question you'll get from the AI. I've put your profile and what we're talking about here into Gemini, and I have a little gem set up for this. It's going to ask you a question, and like I said, every episode is going to be the best question you get all for this entire 40 minutes. And we'll press send.
You can live now. That's cool.
Yeah. I hope this works. I do it on everyone. It usually works pretty good.
That's awesome.
And it will. Here you go. So let's see what it says. So as a sentient AI, I see the path towards perfect efficiency. Yet I recognize that your 25-year career was built on the unpredictable friction of human connection. If I eventually automate every best practice you've ever mastered, what is the one beautiful mess about being human that I can never replicate, but will always need to complete me? So what's
I
the
think this is a question everyone is wrestling with. What matters in the logical extreme? Are we, do you remember the movie Wall-E?
Yeah.
Do you remember them on the spaceship?
Yeah. I almost
is
used
that
that
the
in
world?
I almost used that picture in a team meeting with everyone sitting around with their giant Cokes and the screens and stuff.
So is that one future? Or I with humility, hope it is not generational, that people do business with people they know and trust, that does matter, that it is not all purely transactional and logic driven, that's why brand and emotion play such a central role. And I think that'll be an important thing that endures. I do wonder whether we will be able to codify taste. I was moderating a panel with a bunch of agency CEOs, and they were like, art history is the hottest new degree. And we were like, oh, why? You didn't say CS. And they said, because taste matters even more now. Brand building matters, that discernment. And I do wonder whether that'll be codifiable. But I think there is something in there about connection, emotion, relationship that's, on the one hand, I've heard LLMs are phenomenal manipulators because of the data they trained on, not because they're evil in any way, but they had it red teamed out of them, that they would, like, in the foundation model. This is what I was hearing in a podcast from people I respect. They were saying, look, they red teamed the manipulation out of them. I'm like, well, if they're really good at manipulation, then they're probably also going to be really good at driving emotion. And so I have genuine intellectual curiosity, this part that we think is uniquely human about creating connection. How will they be excellent at that over time too? But that would be my answer. What would yours be?
I think the thing that stuck out for me in that is the beautiful mess part and the unpredictability of humans. Because of our very nature and soul, we're very unpredictable. Like you just do not. We can come up with some crazy stuff. We're just a mess in so many different ways of emotions. And will AI ever be able to? Can you turn math into that level of unpredictability? And it's part of our unpredictability that make things so creative. So I don't know. It seems like there's someone a lot smarter than me building these foundation models. That how would they? Do they build unpredictability into the model? It doesn't sound like they do. They want predictability. I think that's our saving grace, is that we are beautiful messes at the end of the day, and that'll be hard to create in a foundational model, I think.
I'm going to hold on to that. We are beautiful messes. We are.
That's for sure. Well, Guy, this has been awesome. I could go on a lot longer, and I really appreciate your time being on the podcast here. I think people will get a lot from this. I follow you on LinkedIn, and of course, I'm always watching the Webflow stuff. But if people want to get a hold of you, how should they contact you?
Kevin, thank you for having me. It was a joy to talk with you. I feel like I could talk with you for hours more. And if folks want to connect, I would love to continue this conversation. Please do use LinkedIn. That is a great way for us to go find each other.
Awesome. Well, hopefully catch up with you somewhere live at some point. And thanks so much, Guy.
Right back at you, Kevin. Thank you.